Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 164. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture, with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the show, has liked, shared, commented, left us reviews. All your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guests today. Also want to take this time to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment has been providing uncompromising quality for over 40 years. Samson products are long-lasting and made of the highest quality equipment on the market. Each project is built from the ground up with the ability to customize every need. The team at Samson focuses on developing the highest quality relationships with their customers, in addition to providing them unparalleled quality in every piece of equipment bearing the Samson name. Learn more about Samson's professional weight room solutions and the Samson standard at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Trusted since 2012, Cerberus is making the best strongman, powerlifting, and strength sports equipment and accessories, ensuring the ultimate competitive edge. Every one of their products is tried, tested, and proven by top-level athletes worldwide. So whether it's competing at the big stage at World's Strongest Man or training at home in the gym, Cerberus Strength equipment is reliable, durable, and of course, strong enough to handle all your training goals and needs. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength and conditioning gear and strongman equipment, be sure to check out CerberusStrength.com and use promo code STRENGTH_game to save on your next order. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. Born in Scotland and stitched in America, Sport Kilt offers the highest quality custom kilts and accessories. Every sport kilt is made in the USA of machine washable polyester blend fabric, offering an alternative to the traditional heavy wool kilt. Check out the No Pants All Glory selection of kilts and shop the best collection of high quality American made sport kilts and accessories at sportkilt.com and use promo code TSG to receive an extra 10% off your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Tanner Kolb. Tanner is the Associate Director of Strength and Conditioning for Olympic Sports at West Virginia University. Kolb joined the Mountaineers athletic staff in 2012 and was promoted to his current position in 2017, where he handles the strength and conditioning responsibilities for the rifle, men's soccer, and wrestling program. Prior to WVU, Kolb was an assistant strength coach at East Carolina University for 1 year, where he designed and implemented programs for baseball, volleyball, and tennis, as well as assisted with football. Prior to his tenure at ECU, Kolb spent 3 years as the head strength coach and adjunct professor at Waynesburg University. There, he designed and implemented programs for all varsity sports, in addition to teaching 4 classes. Kolb spent 3 years as a fitness specialist at the Stillwater Medical Center and Total Health in Oklahoma, teaching Olympic lifting techniques, instructing group exercise classes, supervising and judging the weightlifting portion of the Pioneer Senior Olympics. Kolb began his career in 2003 as a volunteer coach at Oklahoma State University, where he assisted primarily with the football, wrestling, softball, and equestrian teams. Additionally, he spent 2 stints as a prep strength and conditioning coach, first at Perry High in Oklahoma during the summer of 2004, as well as both Petoskey High and Charlevoix High in Michigan from 2006 to 2008. While there, he contributed time at Northern Michigan Sports Medicine while lecturing and directing powerlifting and strongman competitions. Coach Kolb is a master strength and conditioning coach through the Collegiate Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association, earning the highest honor in the profession in 2021. His work has been published in numerous industry-associated publications, including the Sports Journal, Journal of Applied Ergonomics and Medicine, and Science in Sports and Exercise. A former college wrestler at Messiah College, Kolb has competed both in single-ply and multi-ply geared powerlifting. He is still active himself in the weight room in addition to getting outside the weight room to enjoy rock climbing and whitewater kayaking in his free time. Like I said, I'm excited to have him on the show today. So, with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Tanner Kolb. What's going on, everybody? Today, I'm excited. We've got Coach Tanner Kolb on the show. How you doing today, Coach?
Good, good, very good.
Hey, like we got chatting a little bit before because for us, this is kind of a long kind of reunion from a time that we met when I was at one of my old schools at Loyola. And funny enough, you're still at WVU.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to kind of dive into how your career has been, kind of the changes and things that you got going on at WVU, but also your time before, your time competing and getting involved in strength sports as well. We'll dive into all that stuff. But this is kind of cool to see how things have changed from essentially like 12 years ago. So, hey, without any further ado, let's kind of dive into like how you got really involved in lifting, the strength game, competing in powerlifting, and to kind of like what you're doing nowadays as an active strength coach.
Um, I think that the strength game for me was a natural progression of what am I going to do next. You know, I graduated college, done competing. I wrestled in college, done competing, and I just don't know how to be a normal person. Um, so I graduated college, went to Oklahoma State, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to get into this strength and conditioning field. And I went and did a USA weightlifting certification. And this was 2003 in Edmond, Oklahoma, maybe 2004. And there was a guy there with a CrossFit shirt, and no one knew what CrossFit was then. Um, and he was talking about CrossFit, and I was like, oh, that sounds like something that's right up my alley. You know, it's kind of using similar energy systems and things that I have been training, and so I tried the CrossFit thing for a minute. There was no CrossFit Games back then. There was like 3 affiliates in the country, and I enjoyed that, and I wanted more. I never was really into. I never really trained for that peak strength. Never really knew what I was capable of. My dad was a football player. He did some strongman. He did the world's strongest man competition a number of years. The NFL strongest man, and so like that was always there as a like that absolute strength was always there as something that was cool, but it was never something where I thought I can be the best at it. So I never really dove into it. And I kind of got to the point where, you had for me, like, okay, my college wrestling career is over. There's no real professional wrestling or anything like that. So I don't necessarily have to worry about being the best at something. What do I want to enjoy? And so I'd been following Elite Fitness for a number of years, and reading the articles that were on there, and I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of start looking into, we all got into West Side at some point in time. We all watch. I still have the video box cassette West Side program from who knows when, how old that was, and watching those, and actually in one of the videos, Louis talks about my dad, and so that was kind of cool back then. But I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing powerlifting, and my very first powerlifting meet, AAU meet, maybe I can't remember, was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I bombed. So because it was single ply meet. I don't know what I opened with. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was training by myself, and did that meet, did another meet in northern Oklahoma, outside. Sorry, it was Oklahoma City. The second one was outside of Tulsa, and the second meet went much better. And met a bunch of people, and I was like, oh, this is. I kind of enjoy this camaraderie that comes along with powerlifting, and started reaching out. This is like really early internet days, so we didn't have quite the access to information and other people that we do now. But I ended up signing up for an elite seminar in Dallas. Went down there. As I was checking in, met Jim Wendler. Ended up sitting in the lobby having a conversation with him for quite a while. And then, met a bunch of guys at Bad Attitude Gym. And one guy that is really, to this day, is still one of my best friends, Monty Sparkman, who lives down in Texas still. And so kind of that camaraderie of strength sports was really awesome. The powerlifting went on for a number of years. I had what I would call success for myself. I wanted the total elite in a couple weight classes, and never reached that goal. Had a pretty good squat, decent bench, and I never trained deadlift. I just didn't like it. So that kind of came back to bite me in the butt a number of times. But I did a number of meets, and then I kind of said, I'm done with this. And then Monty, who I mentioned a minute ago, was at VMI, and he was hosting a powerlifting meet, and he talked me into coming down. I was like, all right, I'll come down, but I'm only going to bench. And I went down, benched, had a really good meet. I broke the Virginia state bench record, but it didn't count because I lived in West Virginia at the time. So, it didn't count as a record for me. But I thought that was kind of cool. But that was really the last powerlifting meet I did. I don't know how many I did, maybe 10 to 13 powerlifting meets. I did some weightlifting meets. I enjoyed those, but I'm not a good weightlifter, man. Like, I'm not. But I did enjoy them. And then at the very end, I did a couple super total meets. And those were, if you haven't done one, you should try it. But yeah, doing a snatch, clean and jerk, squat, bench, and deadlift all in the same day in the same meet is exhausting. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. All of that stuff definitely influenced me. I still, I like to hang clean. I like to do clean and jerk. I like to snatch. So like, I still do those three things in my program, my personal programming. A lot of what I do with my wrestling athletes is Olympic based, a little bit with my soccer guys, none with my rifle kids. But yeah, I mean, it's being involved in those worlds. It's really just seeing one end of the spectrum of training that is really cool, and being involved in the camaraderie and meeting folks and listening to how people train, what influenced them, on things like that, and a lot of similar stories out there too.
Yeah, the camaraderie and meeting all those different people and kind of picking their brains as like in between sets and just learning from each other and spotting each other and kind of just picking up different bits and pieces of technique and stuff. It's so much fun, like during those times where you have like even if you don't have a group where you're always together, like even going in for like spot visits or just do like a small competition, just go into bench at VMI. Like I'm sure like all those conversations like meant the world. We had Coach Monty on before too. And
Oh, did you? Okay.
yeah, so that's perfect to kind of see those other worlds like collide a little bit too and hear your backstory into it. Because I know at the same time, like you're talking about developing, like dabbling in all these different competitions and and finding your own personal success in them and then just trying new things and everything. Like you said, it ties back into still what you're doing nowadays, but also allows you to kind of shape from experience what you kind of tie in with your current teams and your athletes there. When did coaching really kind of take the forefront and like start to intermingle with your own competitive experience as well? Because that was something that was got to be happening at the same time simultaneously.
Yeah, maybe even earlier, to be honest. I mentioned my dad earlier, and he was a coach for the majority of my life to some degree. Um, Actually, when I was first born, he was still an athlete. But, just always being around coaching and always being around teaching and always being around that concept of trying to make everyone around you better will inherently make you better. So I think that coaching for me was almost a default setting. I mean, I remember when I was applying to colleges, you know, and that what do you want to major in? Well, I didn't know sports and exercise science was even an option. Like I didn't know that was a thing. Um, I remember thinking, oh, athletic training would be cool because that was actually a major that I knew of. But I knew you couldn't be an athlete and do athletic training at the time. So I was like, oh, I think I would like to be a history professor. So I'll major in history. I mean, I switched my major almost instantly when I got to college because I found out sports and exercise science was a thing. So, because it was like I knew I didn't want to major in phys ed. Nothing against phys ed. It was just like I don't. That's not what I want. So I wasn't really sure I wanted to be a coach, but the idea of being a teacher was pretty cool. And that's kind of come and gone too. I mean, there was a time I started working on a PhD about 12 years ago. And because I was like, oh, I think I want to get into this teaching thing again. And I finished all the classwork and decided that the idea of writing a dissertation wasn't cool. So I was like, I think I'm done with this now. But
I mean, you talk about it too, like teaching and coaching is synonymous with each other. Like it's just how like the vessel that you're actually teaching is the barbell. And you're in
yeah,
the weight room and you actually get to go through the process of getting people ready for their sport or getting people ready for the platform and competing in whatever their strength sport is. So, I mean, you found something that you already were interested in, and you just switched it up from history to go into exercise science. And I mean, your story is so similar to a lot of coaches we've always had on and coaches we've talked to, is they didn't even know that it was an option. Like
yeah,
you know there's someone out there kind of doing it because the profession started growing a little bit. Athletic trainers were just there because like medical side was always going to kind of come at the forefront. And mine was the same way too. Like I didn't know that you could be a strength coach and like get paid for it. I thought it was just kind of a goofy position, like just someone random that maybe wasn't an assistant coach or an OC or DC was like, well, we need someone to coach in the weight room. And like that can kind of be like almost like a special teams position. And I
yeah.
went for athletic training and like the first day I was like, hell no. Like this is not exactly the way I want to be involved in athletics still. I mean, kudos to them like for doing it because we wouldn't be anywhere without them. It's just it's not my cup of tea. But so like, talking about like teaching and like kind of intermingle, like intertwining like all the lessons and stuff when it comes to like preparing athletes to like maybe come in with an empty slate, like no barbell experience. I'm sure it's a little bit different because you have three vastly different teams. And I know I want to touch base on like kind of how the programming differs and like how your philosophy is. But like when you get athletes that come in, like how do you kind of approach the teaching aspect of like, hey, this is how we do it here at WVU. This is how we do it. Coach Kolb does it. Like here, this is how X sport does it. Because you got to break it down before you start teaching them complex movements like Olympic lifts, or they start ramping up the intensity on some heavier squats or deadlifts and bench. But how do you kind of like break down that stuff and like really actually teach athletes that are brand new to the program or brand new to lifting in general?
I mean, it's definitely multifaceted, and I'll start with another Buddy Morris quote. And I doubt that he was the first person to say this, but I think he was the first person I heard say it. So, your athletes don't care what you know until they know you care, and we've all heard that, and I think that's so simple yet so profound. I was talking to one of my kids earlier today, and I said, this program that I'm giving you is not my program. This is your program that I wrote. And I want you to take ownership over it in that sense that it's yours to do, yours to work hard at, and that kind of thing. Because I don't get married to any philosophy, and you plan on asking about that later, so I won't get into it too much. So I want my athletes to know that I care about them. I want them to know that I'm here for them, not they're here for me. And when they come in, I think soccer is a great example because I've got, I don't know what it is right this moment, but we were like 70% international not long ago when I looked at it and figured it out. And if you go to foreign countries, which I've had a little bit of experience going abroad, there's not gyms and weight rooms on every block like we have in America. They don't have the same access to stuff as we do. Not that they don't have great athletes. Well, how do they have great athletes, but they're not doing the same type of foundational training we are? Okay, well, maybe there's multiple ways to get to the same place. But also, we're going to do strength training here. And so I have to convince this young man who has seen other athletes be successful without doing this and has no experience doing it himself, that this is beneficial to them. And it can be really hard, and you really have to figure out a way to make a connection and develop a relationship with that athlete. Because you get good athletes that'll do what you ask them to regardless. But, I don't want you just to do what I'm telling you to do because I'm your coach. I appreciate that. But I also want you to see the benefit. I want you to see the why. I want you to understand the rationalization for why we do what we do when we do it. And understanding that, why is this summer program different than last year's summer program? Well, we got to do a different team. Even the guys that are still here have developed, hopefully, have changed, have progressed. So we as a team have different needs. And I think all of those things go back to, I have over 80 athletes. I can't write 80 programs, but how do I make each athlete understand that this program is their program for them? I'm just the delivery system. And I think that's super beneficial. And then, when we start kids, for me, everything's progression based. So day one, I put a kettlebell in their hand and we start doing stuff with kettlebells that will translate to barbell and other movements as we go through. We learn to squat with goblet squats and rack squats, and we learn to hinge doing kettlebell swings and things like that, where they're using a really light external load. If they drop it, not a big deal. Drop the kettlebell. It might take a bad bounce, but for the most part, I don't have to worry about it hurting them. And we can do a lot of reps. I do a lot of sets, I should say, because I keep the reps when they start out typically, 5 or less even. I'm not trying to fatigue them. I'm trying to develop movement patterns and those neurological pathways. So not looking for a fatigue component at the moment. And hopefully we are able to start to develop those things so that, in a couple weeks when we are doing our complex lifts that, oh, yeah, now I know how to engage my hips. Now I know what a correct squat depth is, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I like to hear that too because it's interesting, like not trying to like just get them fatigued off the get-go because two of your three sports, like that's kind of a lot of times what they're known for is like, can soccer players run for all eternity and just keep running and keep running, keep running? And wrestlers are just, how much work can you just put your head down and work and grind it out and sweat? And for you to take a step back, and it's probably counterintuitive to some of them because they're like, oh, I could do light weights all day, I could go all day. But when you make them kind of meticulously focus on maybe a movement pattern they're not accustomed to, or you give them an external load and they're not used to it, and the reps are short, or there's tempo, or there's different things kind of involved, so they can develop those patterns. Like it's probably pretty frustrating for a lot of them too to like slow down and
Yeah.
really kind of get critiqued in a way they might not have get critiqued before because they're coming in a lot of times as really good athletes already. And like you said, some of the ones that are European or just coming from out of the country and any place, maybe not as familiar with some of the movements or the like gym setting as well. So they've seen people be, like you said, be successful without training. And now you're kind of picking at them when they're already a good athlete. Like, why do they need to add this?
Well,
So it's interesting too. Like you talked about the kind of building that buy-in and the relationship with athletes. Like, do you think that it's kind of do you like kind of get upset or like think about things when an athlete like doesn't ever question or like doesn't ever like get to the point where they're asking the why and they're just kind of like going through the motions, like they never like really want to take ownership of the program? Like, is that something that you just have to kind of keep working at and develop a relationship or speak to them differently? Or is there just sometimes like, I don't want to say like a lost cause with some athletes, but sometimes you get some that like you just can't crack through the surface and like now in this day and age you might only have an athlete for a year so you don't have that necessarily that amount of time to like really figure out how they work and how they think and what the best approach is with them, if that kind of makes sense.
it does. And I've definitely used the lost cause term before, and I don't like it either. Because I don't want to quit on something, right? I don't want to feel like I failed. Um, but at the end of the day, it is my responsibility. It is my job. It is what I've chosen to do to reach those kids. And I would be lying if I sat here and said that's never happened, but it does for sure happen. Um, you know, and in ways that aren't necessarily bad, like you kind of mentioned that kid that just never questions anything, just always does it. Do I take that for granted as, oh, I'm not going to spend as much time with that kid. I'm not going to try to develop a relationship with them because of how hard they work. So now their hard work might be negatively influencing our relationship because I'm going to spend more time on the kids that, choose not to work so hard. Um, yeah, that's the basis of that question and everything that goes along with it has kept me up before. And, and I don't know if, I am smart and a good enough coach that I'll ever figure out how to reach everybody. Um, but I just keep trying. There I have had athletes in the past that um, just never really developed any kind of relationship with, have not had a good relationship with, um, and then guys where you get wedding invitation and childbirth announcements and things like that, or the random text and phone call. So all across that spectrum. Um, but yeah, I think you just got to keep trying. And I, like I tell my interns, I try to spend the majority of my time when I'm on the floor with the guys or gals. I just don't have many. That I need to develop that relationship with, the most and who need the coaching the most. My guys that do the best, I already have a really good relationship with them. I know that whether I'm standing on their platform or not, they're going to work hard and do the things I'm asking them to do. So I can spend time with the folks that don't. And so I do. But I think that with our situation, and like when you were in college, like a lot of that relationship is not developed in the weight room. It's developed in the airport or in the van or at a meal when you're traveling with a team. And the power dynamic has been maybe not completely removed, but definitely shifted. We're sitting down at a team meal and, I'm not going to go sit at the coach's table. I'm going to go sit with the athletes, try to sit with different people, not the ones who are my favorites. But, I'm always your coach, but right now we're going to have a conversation that's not about training unless they bring it up. But, relax, try to remove those barriers, and give them the space to feel like they can say whatever they want. And what I've found is whenever you can get an athlete to teach you something, it's harder for me with wrestling because I was a wrestler, but soccer, I learned this really early on. Like I've never played soccer. So why don't you teach me something about your sport? Why don't we allow you to feel like you're investing in this relationship, to improve me and my knowledge of the game that you love. And I show interest in that. And that goes a long way with those groups.
Yeah, that's great. Like being able to I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you talk about like developing the relationships outside the weight room. And I've had different experiences at different places, like when I was in college, because there's some places where I only see them in the weight room. Like when I was working at Salisbury, like Division 3, it's just at one point in time, I'd have 10 groups a day, like four groups of football, two groups of men's lacrosse, one group of women's lacrosse, and two groups of baseball. And then I go to class and then I'm lifting and then doing whatever GAs do. Like there's no time to go to practice or see anything. And it's hard to develop those relationships. And I think it's also different too when you're closer to the age of the athletes too, because you sometimes you want to keep those barriers up a little bit more so that they don't forget you're a coach. And I think you also don't want to forget that you're a coach too, because that power dynamic is a little bit fuzzy at that point. But I think it's huge to be able to go on those trips and like be more part of the process and learn more about them. But you brought up an interesting point, like having a wrestling background, and I think a lot of coaches tend to draw towards a sport or want to be a sport. Same reason they played, they want to be involved in a sport, like and coach as a strength coach as well. But it's also beneficial to kind of see other sports in action. You talked about like learning from the soccer players and like, I mean, obviously, like anybody wants to talk about something they love. So a soccer player that wants to teach you about something and like you're both helping each other and you're developing a relationship. But because you have a background in wrestling, like how does that differ developing those relationships? Because you kind of already have a foot in the door. So how's the relationship kind of develop in the same manner? When is that just learning about the individual less than the sport because you already got experience in that sport essentially?
Yeah, I think that there are certain sports where having a background in it is really beneficial. But also, like, I think a good strength coach should be able to train anybody. Um, but, I remember years and years ago having a conversation with Todd Hammer when he was at Robert Morris, and he was talking about being able to speak the language of the sport. Soccer, they call the field the pitch, they call their cleats boots, just simple things like that. And being able to speak their language, not being a poser, because they can spot BS, but in a way that makes them comfortable with you. So with wrestling, I kind of have that credibility in the sense of, I know I don't look like it now, but I cut weight when I was in college, quite a bit actually. That was big part of my life was just trying to make weight, and so being able to talk to a guy that's working out and they're worried about cutting weight, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. I was there. I understand what you're going through. Tell me how you're feeling. Let's make these adjustments based on that. Okay. So speaking their language, I'm letting them know that I have been there. I understand. And I'm accepting their feedback. I'm respecting their, how they feel about themselves and how they feel about their own training and how they just feel. And I'm going to listen to that and make changes based on that. Because, I think sometimes coaches get too wrapped up in the program, and this is the program. And my least favorite part of the job is writing programs. I hate my own programs. I don't hate them, but like we just started our summer program. The first day of the first week of the first block, I got my program on my master sheet on the clipboard, and I'm changing things that we're going to do today that we haven't even gotten to yet. Like, oh, well, this isn't going to work, So I think that it's important not to be married to anything. It's most evident, like with injured athletes. Oh, I got to change this for an injured athlete, but why can't I change an exercise because of an athlete's preference, or because, hey, I don't really feel like putting a bar on my back because, I'm dropping 10 pounds this week or something like that. Oh, yeah, that I could see how that would suck. Let's do this instead. There's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of ways of getting to the same end. What's on my clipboard isn't anything special. So let's change it. I don't care. If you're going to work harder at something else, that should be my goal, right? I'm not here to gatekeep and force you to do something just because I wrote it. And again, I think that shows the athlete that you're there for them, not they're there to promote you or your program, or, so I can talk about how great of a coach I am because one of my athletes was an All-American. Some of my athletes, we were talking recently, they asked me, what do you think about Troy Polamalu's workouts? And I was like, well, let's understand what Troy did when he was at USC in college, and it's not what he's putting videos up now, right? So, that might be what he needs to do. And I don't want to speak for Troy, but I think perspective, right? Like, what did he do to get there? What did he have to do to stay there for as long as he did? So, it's not always the same program is always going to work. And there's no reason that we shouldn't be changing it all the time and trying to find not the best program, but the best program for this person for right now.
Yeah, I like that. I kind of did the same thing. I always carry around a red pen, and I abuse like my master sheet all the time. And I've done the same thing. First session, you start like of a new block, and you're looking and be like, oh, this isn't going to work the way I planned it. And you go over to the whiteboard and you start like kind of making some errors. And I used to like try to erase it and like see if I could pull a fast one on them. And they have the same sheets, like, so they know exactly what's going on. And I finally got to the point where I was like, I'll mark over it in a different color so they know I made a mistake. So they know like, hey, he's aware, he's not trying to like pull a fast one on us. But yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah, but just think about when you show vulnerability as a coach. I don't think that we should live on a pedestal. I don't think we should expect our athletes to think that we're flawless. I think speaking with one of my wrestlers today, and he was talking about a match that he wrestled against a really good guy last year. And he's like, yeah, right before I went in, Coach Flynn was like, this guy's a puzzle. You're going to have to figure him out on the mat. And he was like, I've never gotten coaching advice. And I said, but dude, think about it. He was being honest with you. Like, why can't we be honest with our athletes and be vulnerable and be like, yo, I screwed up. I mean, I've been married over 20 years. The amount of times I've screwed up is endless at this point, And so why can't that be the same in professional? Like, every job interview I've ever been on, I say the same thing. Hey, I'm going to screw up. I'm just letting you know right now, but I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to work hard to fix it. And I'm going to try not to make that same mistake again. But inevitably I'm going to do something wrong. It's just, I'm not that, I don't think that highly of myself that I don't think that my stuff needs to be amended and changed as I go.
Yeah, I love that. I think early in your career it's harder to do that because again, for the age and like you don't want to feel like you lose the trust with the athletes, but like later on in your career, like I mean, the quicker, like if you're humble and the quicker you get to a solution, like just cutting the BS and just say, hey, I own this, I messed it up, we're actually gonna change this. Like, I think you build a lot more rapport and respect with your athletes right away because, like, yeah, it humanizes you. Like, they feel like they can actually have conversations with you because you're more reasonable. You're not gonna just like blow the whistle and tell them to do something with for no reason, and they also know that like you're a work in progress. The program is ever evolving and it's built for them. You're not just married to like what you've already printed out and put on the sheet. Like we're trying to find the best solution for you. And in starting this session, I found something that works better for you all. So it's a great way to do it. And I love what you talk about, like too, like speaking the language of the athletes like that, especially a team you've never had, if you go visit them and you like start talking kind of their lingo, like, and they know for a fact that like, hey, you didn't play this sport, like it pays dividends. It's like it means the world to them. And I even coming into like working with wrestling when I did, um, I was like, oh, I think I understand this. Like I get it. I picked it up quickly. I didn't wrestle in college or high school, but like I picked it up quickly, like watching combat sports. And I was like, oh, I cut weight for strongman and Highland games. So I was like, I can relate to these guys a little bit better. And I quickly was like, oh, it's different when you're cutting weight every single week. And I'm like, I only have to cut leading into a competition. They're doing it back to back to back. And like, I quickly changed how I would give them more open sets so that guys that were not good at cutting could figure that stuff out a little bit better. It would give other guys that like were hovering around their weight class like more freedom to kind of push the envelope if they were feeling strong that day. So I was like, I realized in that moment, I was like, I have to keep, even if I think I have like a lock on it, you just got to keep learning and learning. Talking about like a team that like I think a lot of people don't have experience with, and maybe some coaches don't realize that it's involved in collegiate athletics is rifle. How do you kind of start developing a relationship with them and like how is how in the world do you like start developing a program for them when when you look at it on paper, what's happening in the weight room doesn't look anything like what they're going to be doing like when they actually compete because that is vastly different when you're talking about a tie-in for a soccer player to the weight room or a wrestler to the weight room. How does that process even like go about since your time working with them?
That was total. I mean, like you said, I didn't know rifle was a sport when I first got until I first got here. Um, and like it was one of those situations where I walked into the best program in the country, and it like talk about making you nervous. Like, look, I just don't want to screw this up. Um, with a sport that I know nothing about. And so I had to learn. Um, Fortunately, it's a sport where, we have never carried more than 10 kids. So it's not like, okay, I've got to learn 30, 40 kids. I've got to learn 10. When I first took them over, there was a very good, strong senior leadership aspect to that team. So, and very respectful kids, very hardworking kids. So it was actually easy in that sense because they were the kids that came in and did exactly what I asked. I mean, I could have told them to jump up and down on one leg; they would have done it. But fortunately, their range was one floor up from my weight room, and so I literally just would go up and watch practice. I still tell them to the day, it's so boring to watch you guys because they literally just sit, stand, or lay there. Like hang a can or something. At least there's a sound when you hit. But and I am to the point now where I travel with them quite frequently. We do some longer trips. We'll, like this year coming up, we're going to Alaska. That'll be a really long trip, number of days. So I get a lot of time with them. They're pretty good about doing some team bonding stuff at the beginning of the year on mid-year trips, end of the season stuff. So, the coach is an unbelievable person. He's an unbelievable coach, but I think he's an unbelievable coach because he's an unbelievable person. And has always included me in the team stuff and given me the opportunity to develop those relationships. So, I went up and they put me in the suit and I went up and shot with them. And, I've been around guns my whole life. I like shooting guns, but it's so different. And then with the programming, like most sports, if not all sports, have a number of KPIs that we can be like, this is your sport. This is what's needed. I train this. There should be a pretty solid correlation with performance. They don't have that. There's really nothing where I can say, hey, if this improves, you should be better. I get these kids that come in and they all have imbalances. They're all, their one shoulder is higher than the other. Their hips are off. One leg's longer than the other. Their spines are all crooked because of the positions they sit and stand in hours and hours a day. And it's like, so then you start thinking, okay, well, I'm going to correct these things. Well, what if I correct these things and it decreases performance? Like, are they able to do this because they've inherently created this imbalance and then use that imbalance to be proficient at their sport? So it's like, oh, wait a second, you gotta really step back and think about what you're doing with these kids. So, I think first and foremost, for them, for that team, for a lot of teams, even, I treat them like Division I athletes because they are, right? They're Division I athletes. So I want to make sure that I'm treating them as such. I'm providing a program that is to a level that would be expected by a Division I athlete. We're not doing cleans. We're not doing plyometric. I mean, I guess we do some plyos, but like we're not doing like depth jumps and some of the higher amplitude stuff. But we're gonna do some type of squatting pattern. We're gonna do some kind of pressing pattern. I might have, we had 9 kids. I might have 9 people doing 9 different types of squat pattern. I'm cool with it. And I do a lot of, with them, what I did at the end of the season, at the end of the semester, which was postseason for them, is like, hey, come in. Here are 4 options. You pick the exercise you want to do. Each exercise has a different set rep assigned to it. I've picked the supersets, or, I'll give them the primary movement and they choose the supersets, or, some variation of like a choose your own adventure workout where they get some autonomy in their programming because again, they're probably the higher maturity level of any of our athletes. And, I'm not really working for a specific outcome I'm not looking at KPIs for them. I just want them to train. Now, does increasing mobility help them? Does increasing balance help them? Does increasing fitness help them? Yeah, those things are beneficial. But we don't have to look at it with the same kind of periodization models that we do when we're trying to increase vertical jump or squat strength or something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting to kind of hear. And like I think we're all inherently understand that to a point where like imbalance, like every athlete that's done it for a while, their sport and wants to be successful is going to have some imbalances. And a lot of times where like certain sports, you can pick that athlete out of a crowd. If you put them in a lineup, you're going to kind of be able to kind of judge what kind of athlete they are based off their body type or like
Yeah.
how they move and things like that. But it's always interesting to know, like see like, oh, well, if I can't correct their imbalances, like how do I make them better athletes when there's not as much of a direct tie over from training to their sport? And I think you hit it on the head again too, like talking about just you want to get them to train, like you want them to develop those characteristics, you want them to be healthier and you want them to be able to move better and like find those little tweaks. And it doesn't matter necessarily like the method. And again, you're not so rigid in your structure that you don't let them have that freedom a little bit more to kind of do the things that they feel like are going to make them better. Because at the end of the day, they're still training. You still have a structure to the system and you can kind of guide them while they still get some autonomy. And that's interesting to hear, like you say too, like the maturity level for them is higher.
Yep.
And it's perfect because it doesn't necessarily like good training age doesn't necessarily mean they're mature, as most people kind of see when they get into the weight rooms. Like the least mature person might be the highest training age. Like it doesn't go hand in hand all the time. So that's a good point with it. I wanted to touch on something that we kind of talked about before we kind of got going, and I didn't want to dive too much into it because you were making some really good points. But I want to talk about kind of like how not only strength coaches, but outside observers, fans, and spectators kind of, and maybe ADs and like anybody that like is some way associated with athletics, like defines success. And a lot of times it's wins and losses. And like we see it now with the changing landscape of college athletics and NIL and transfer portal and stuff too. Like coaches get chopped, no fault of their own. Sometimes it is their fault of their own. Like a lot of times Olympic sports, like you can ride and die and you can stay for a long time. You're a testament to that. What is it, 14 years at WVU now?
14 or 15, yeah.
14, 15? Yeah, see, they all start blending together now.
I couldn't tell you exactly, yeah.
But with that too, like you've been namestay with some of your teams for a while. Like I know we got talking, it was like three different head wrestling coaches, two different men's soccer coaches, and I think it sounds like the same rifle coach the whole
Yeah.
time. So cultures change a little bit, maybe how they recruit, how they want to train, how they structure practice and stuff like that. Like you've been the consistent with all those things, like in that process. How do you kind of like onboard with a new staff and like how do you really start like defining success for like what you have a hand and stake in when it comes to like your coaching program and how you kind of influence the athletes that you inevitably get to work with?
Yeah, lot there. I think that defining success is going to there's going to be a hierarchy, right? Um, I think that it's important to understand how your staff that you work for, that you're an extension of, define success, what they're looking for, what they want. Because I can walk around all day being like, oh, I'm successful because of these reasons. And at the end of the day, we are a business now. I mean, college athletics is a business. Um, you said it before. I mean, people get fired when they lose. So that is the ultimate goal is to be successful in the wins and losses category. So it doesn't matter if every metric that I test, we're improving and we're losing, right? So I think that for me, in evaluating my program and my coaching, I'm looking at success subjectively and objectively. Obviously, are the metrics changing in a positive manner? And that can be misleading because, listen, I'm dealing with 18 to 22, 3-year-old guys for the most part. Like, their bench is going to go up carrying jugs of water up and down stairs. Like, I mean, they're just going to get better at stuff. Just natural maturity, physiological maturing. So, I don't want to run down the road of, our squats are going up, our cleans are going up, our benches are going up, whatever lift we're doing is going up, our vertical jumps are going up. I mean, I have to be real. Is that going up because wrestling? We did our pre-tests were done after the season was over, and now my 125 pounder might weigh 150 pounds, and his squat has gone up X amount. Well, no kidding, because weight moves weight. So he gained weight, he lifts more. I can't take credit for that, the objective stuff is good, but I think this subjective stuff is really good. I had 2 guys in my GA stuck around after lift today, and we were talking about different training stuff. Like, for me, that's a win. Like, I came into this podcast like in a great place because I had such a good win today because of an unbelievable conversation of them asking me about random stuff that they see on whatever, TikTok or Twitter. I don't know what the kids use, but I'm old. But what do you think about this training and this training? And it's like, well, like, it all has its place. Let's put everything in context. Let's ask, why is it important? So, like, for me, a conversation like that is super awesome. When I hear from a soccer player that I worked with 15 years ago, and hey, I'm having my second baby, can't wait for her to start working out with me in the garage, like stuff like that. Those are wins. How my relationships are developing, those are wins. But not just relationships with my athletes. Like, I think that we have a very, very good staff here across the board in performance staff. We work very well with our ATs. We work very well with our nutrition staff, with our sports psych staff. Like, those are, I value that I evaluate those successes as well, because all of those people are super beneficial in me doing a good job objectively. If our nutrition folks are good and they're doing a good job fueling our athletes, they're going to progress for me. If our AT group is really good at getting them back from injury and keeping them safe and all those things, they're going to do better for me. If our sports psych folks are doing a good job of helping these athletes get over the mental hurdles that they have these days. I mean, like, sports psych was not a thing when I was an athlete. Like, oh, you got a problem? Suck it up and deal with it. Like, well, no one knew you had a problem because you didn't have the balls to say you had a problem, right? But these folks are dealing with stuff now, and they're being vocal about it, which I think is a really good thing. And we have folks in place that help them. So, to me, those are successes, being able to work with those people and, have those people show up at your office and be like, hey, I wanted to get your thoughts on so-and-so. How can we work together to improve? Like, hey, maybe mention something during lift today or stuff like that. And then the relationship with the coaching staff is huge. And so, yeah, I've been through a number of head coaches. It's always different. I'm very fortunate where I'm at now to deal with some probably Rifle won second national championship back-to-back this previous year. So they are by far our best team on campus. My soccer team, um, we were number 3. Well, we were top 4 a couple years ago. They I guess whatever poll they use said we were 3. And wrestling's been a top 20 program for the past couple years. So I've got those successes too, and that's awesome, especially for longevity and career wise. And I really think it all comes down to recruiting. You've seen different systems win in every sport. It just comes down to recruiting and not always getting the best athlete, but just like a program, getting the best athlete for you for right now, that fits what we're trying to do, our idea of what a successful team looks like. And I work with 3 really, really good coaches that are unbelievable people to begin with. All 3 of them, my soccer coach, my wrestling coach, and my rifle coach. These are people that I would spend time with outside of work. And I think that says a lot about who they are and how they coach. So.
No, that's great. That's a lot of good, helpful advice too. Like when it comes to the hierarchy of success, and there's so many different things that play a role in that. And I think it's smart to take not only the objective stuff but also the subjective things that go into it, because it's the same adage that we used to talk about when it came to testing. And I know early in my career, my mentors would always say is all right, well, if you're going to own the wins, you're going to have to own those losses too. If you're going to own an athlete, putting 40 pounds on a squat is the one that went down in that broad jump, that's on you too. So be careful with all those things, but there's a lot more stuff that goes into the same thing people don't like to hear, the soft skills of coaching, but the relationship building, all the subjective stuffs, the interpersonal things that happen behind the scenes between the staff, between the coaches, staying on board and understanding are we all pulling in the same direction? That stuff's huge. I know what you said about your 3 head coaches, I remember one of my coaches at Jacksonville would say it all the time. He was better people make better dolphins. So he's at the core, if you're a better person, you're going to be a better teammate. You're going to be a better athlete on this team. That's the type of people that we're trying to recruit. That's the type of people that we want to surround ourselves with. So if you could do that, you're in a really good spot. And then the X's and O's and how well we perform, that stuff's going to just fit into play because we have the right people surrounding us. Now, you talked about a little bit longevity, obviously having success on the field in their sport, in their endeavor, is super helpful for a coach too. You're as much a part of it as they are as well, however you want to own some of that stuff. But not many coaches seem to have a lot of longevity at one place. And that's maybe that up to them and maybe not so much up to them based off career projection and where they want to go, and if hiring and firing is kind of out of their way. But when it comes to longevity, for a coach that wants to stay in a place for a while and go through coaching changes or things you have, one, how do you kind of pitch yourself to stay? And then secondly, how have you pitched yourself to stay? And then also, why have you chosen to kind of stay? Because some people, the grass is greener, sometimes it's not. But how and why have you been able to stay in your position over at WVU?
Grass always looks greener, right? And it might be. I'm I don't know if I'm like other people, I guess. For me, the idea of being a director has never been a driving factor. So I think that's part of it. I've never been well, I'm looking to be a director, and so I've got to go and get that job that leads to that job that leads to that job that eventually leads to being a director. Not that I don't believe I could do it. It's just never been like my driving factor. I like being responsible for me. I don't necessarily like the idea of being responsible for other people. Oh, so and so made this mistake. That's me. I'm the director. That's my responsibility. I don't really want to be in that role. I like coaching. That my favorite part is being on the floor. I don't want to spend more time in meetings than I already have to. I don't want to deal with those other things. So I think that's been a large part of it. I did apply for a director position a number of years ago, but the reason is it was a place I wanted to live, not necessarily a school I wanted to work at. Not necessarily teams that I wanted to work with, but it was a place I wanted to like. I said, oh, I could see myself living here, in the mountains, that's my kind of gig. So I think that's where I am in my career really is like, I'm not looking for a certain monetary, value to my job. I haven't been chasing dollars or titles. So that allows me to not be complacent, but be content. And I think that for me, I've learned over the years how to find joy and pleasure and satisfaction in where I'm at, and instead of trying to look for the next step and missing the great things that I have here. And so because there hasn't been a fire under my butt to get me to leave, that's been helpful. So as far as that goes, that's probably the biggest reason. I've been very, very fortunate here at WVU. Mike Joseph, who's still here, was here when I got here at football, was the director overall of strength and conditioning when I first got here. We split football and Olympic about 5 years ago now. And at which point in time, Caitlin Sweeney became the director of the Olympic sports. And I mean, unbelievable relationship with both these guys. And Caitlin is an unbelievable boss, supervisor, co-worker, every area. So, she includes me and values my opinion as someone who's been in this field for a long time. So yeah, I still have a voice, but I don't have the director responsibilities. And I totally dig that. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if someday that will change, and I'll want that. But right now, along the way in the last 15 years, plus or minus, my title has changed, which again, I don't really care about, but it's nice to know that you're valued. So that's been really good that's happened. I've monetarily, I've been increased over time. And so that's allowed me to stay. I haven't needed to search for a different title or more money because WVU has done that. And I hope it's because they recognize, what I bring to the table and who I am and what I value. So they value me for those reasons. But also, been married for 20 years. My wife loves it here. I got a 15-year-old that loves it here. All the things that we like to do outside of work, which, not a lot of time, as certain points of the year, but summer, I've got way more free time in the summer, and I can go rock climbing or kayaking or mountain biking, and my son races mountain bikes, and this is the kind of place that we want to live. So I'm from Pittsburgh. I don't know if I'd like to work at Pitt just because I don't want to live in the city, right? So if you ever see that I've left WVU, look at where I'm going. It's probably somewhere in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. So, yeah, that's kind of where my driving factor is as far as longevity. But all, whether or not I emphasize it enough, the people I work with and for are great. Like, I mean, such great relationships. I don't wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I get to go hang out with people that I enjoy being around. Cool. I'm excited. I'm excited for the day.
No, it's great to hear. That's the type of situation I think a lot of people would like kill for. That's where they want to be, and they longevity in the career is awesome. And it's unfortunate that it seems like in some places it's disappearing. And I don't know if that's people, again, like you said, trying to climb the ladder when it comes to titles or monetarily or just get to better situations or maybe the same thing. They're trying to seek out mountains or the beach or something like that or be closer to family. Like everybody has different reasons and rationale like why they're kind of making those moves. Like I've done it for reasons like I left Loyola because they were not giving me benefits. And I was like, and the amount of times that my dad would yell at me saying that you should probably get insurance was enough to get me to move across the country and take a job that would actually give me benefits. So everybody moves for different reasons. So
Yeah. I
it's
don't fault them. I mean, like the things that make me happy probably don't make most people happy. So I'm not going to judge you for any reason that you decide to leave or go somewhere else.
no, but it's also good to hear too because I've heard some coaches talk about it before, and I don't think I've ever really dived in it too much, other than like maybe some surface level conversations. But I remember one coach would say like, I wouldn't hire someone that doesn't want to be a head coach. And I was like, to me, it always kind of rubbed me a little bit different because I was like, oh, does it mean head coach? Does it mean director? Like what it is, like what are you actually trying to get at? Because I've always viewed myself with whatever team I'm working with. I was like, I'm the head strength coach for that team. Like I'm already a head coach. So maybe I don't have some of the other things that like a director would have. And like you said, like overseeing people. But I always like, I'd rather be on the floor coaching and I'd rather be like the mastermind programming and developing those relationships and supporting my team rather than having to like essentially babysit like another coach that's like not already doing those things themselves. But it sounds like you have a great situation where everybody's valued, everybody has an opinion, everybody is has a seat at the table when it comes to that stuff. So it feels a lot nicer to come to work. And like you said too, it's even nicer too when you do have that time off and you're afforded the ability to like you enjoy the area and spending time with your family and going out and doing the different experiences. Like kind of touch on that because wrestling's done, powerlifting's done. Like I'm sure you're still involved in training in some aspects, but like what gets you to pick up rock climbing and like whitewater kayaking? Is it the area? Is it just something different? And like how do you like mix that into maybe what you do training in the barbell?
Um, well, it's, I, one of my favorite, I guess it's not necessarily a memory, but like things looking back at my childhood for me was, my dad never said to me in 46 years to this day, he has still never said, be careful. Um, and, uh, and so I don't want to be careful. I, I enjoy, um, I enjoy testing myself, whether it's in the weight room, in athletics, in competition. But yeah, the summer before I went to college, my dad was like, "Hey, his friend Randy had some friends that owned a climbing gym, and they were going to take us up to New York to the Gunks and go rock climbing." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds awesome." This is 1999, so like again, you don't see that. I'm sure to this point, well, everyone knows who Alex Honnold is, has seen Free Solo. I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Rock climbing. We're just going to go up. I don't know what it's like. And there was something about that trip that was just like touched my soul on this is, I don't know what it is about this, but this is speaks to me. And so ended up a couple months later went to college, and those guys, the gym they owned was like 6-7 miles from where my school was. And so I would go there to their gym and climb. And we were in Central PA, which there's some options around. There were a couple other guys on my wrestling team that had some experience. And so we just started climbing on our off time. And, turns out we were really dumb and dangerous because we didn't know any better. We just did it. Looking back now that I know things, it's like, don't know how we're still alive. But rock climbing was always super important to me. When I left, when I graduated and went to Oklahoma, the second or third day I was there, I met a guy sitting in Quiznos, who was a climber, because he had a t-shirt on. And so him and I got to be climbing partners when I lived in Oklahoma. And then we moved to Michigan, and I kind of fell away because there's really not much where we lived. And then when I came back to PA, at Waynesburg University, kind of picked it up again. And then, it's always been there. And now, some of my closest relationships are guys that I hang out with, and we go climbing. I just got back from a trip to Looking Glass Mountain in North Carolina. We jumped in the car on a Thursday evening, drove there, got there at 2:30 in the morning, woke up the next day, climbed all day, drove to Summersville, West Virginia, climbed the next day, and then drove home. Like, that's kind of the stuff that gets it for me. And then the whitewater stuff was just kind of probably an area thing, because this is one of the better places in the country for whitewater. And my wife's friend husband was into whitewater, and we knew that, and we wanted to take my son at the time down the river. Not that it was really a whitewater river, but he came with us. And then afterwards he's like, hey, well, you want to go rafting with me next weekend? I was like, sure. He had his own stuff. And I started doing that, got bit by the bug. And I'm not your typical climber or kayaker. So like, people don't have stuff I can borrow and try things out. So I kind of got to commit to doing stuff. So I bought a whitewater kayak, and it was like, okay, well, I just spent a couple $100 on this. I'm going to do it. And and I mean, that was 10-ish years ago or more now. And, this past weekend went and did a couple rivers. I'm going tomorrow after work. We do a family whitewater trip on Memorial Day every year. It's just like, that's what I do. I don't want to, my wife does yell at me sometimes, cause I'm like a light switch. I'm either on or off. Like, I'm either doing something super active or I'm like shut down. There's really no middle ground in my activity level. So, that's just the way it is.
No, that's cool. It's a cool thing to kind of get involved in, and like just saying yes to one of those activities like turns into a 10-year adventure. It turns into meeting people in Quiznos and getting involved in some of those things. And I know your son's starting to like race mountain bikes and stuff too. So like, I mean, it's just cool to get outside and experience those things and see what the area has to offer and get the family involved. So it's definitely some fun adventures to kind of stay part of. What, like, those are unconventional things sometimes, or like maybe untraditional to some people that live in Pittsburgh or in places like where you're not going to see rivers like that, or maybe be able to just go rock climbing randomly. But like, you can get some sort of training aspect out of that too. Like, because it's different than like powerlifting and like you wrestling growing up, like, are any of those things like, are you able to kind of take those back, or do you kind of tinker with those with some of your athletes, like unconventional conditioning or maybe grip work or stuff? Like, how are some of those experience maybe like found a way to tie back into your team training?
Yeah, I mean, the grip is you mentioned is probably the biggest carryover. Um, I mean, I got that shelf right here is all different grip stuff. But I mean, it is such a huge part of wrestling that not necessarily max grip strength, but grip endurance, and that's kind of what rock climbing is too. Like, no one hold is, are you well, I guess sometimes you are squeezing for dear life, but like, it's being able to do it over and over again. And so yeah, I mean, I get a lot of different grip strength tools. Some of them are specifically marketed to climbers that I just know about because I'm in that world, and I bring over. And other stuff is, like all the Iron Mind stuff or whatever, grip stuff's out there right now. But yeah, I mean, like I don't train for climbing or kayaking. My personal training is still just things I like to do and trying to be well rounded and, being able to, I, because of my active life and being an idiot sometimes, I wake up in the morning and I'm stiff and sore and it takes me a while to get going. So, like, at 46, if I'm like that, what am I going to be like at 56 and 66 and 76? Like, so, I want to be able to move for the rest of my life. So, I mean, that's kind of why I train anymore is, I'm never going to have the big squats again. I haven't been able to bench in years from just bad shoulders. So, like, chasing big numbers isn't a thing, but man, I still really enjoy doing that stuff. And it's nice because I can have more of that randomized workout. Oh, I feel like doing this today. Well, does that necessarily fit with your rest of the program? No, but that's, like one of my GAs was asking me how I write circuits for wrestling. And I was like, well, let's do it and we'll go through the circuit that we write. And, so I just switched what I was doing that day and we did a circuit. And for me, hey, I'm checking the box that I did something active today that was beneficial for me. And so that's what's important.
No, that's the beauty of it too. Like when you don't necessarily like have a goal, like maybe a targeted goal of like have a competition or something coming up, like something that like has a date circled around it. When you have, it's a little bit more open-ended, whereas like I want to be training, I want to be active, I want to be well-rounded so I can go do these activities. Like you afford yourself that flexibility in your program to do things you enjoy, to do things that like you want to test out for your athletes and then generally like just make you feel good too. And that's cool to have that shift like within your training, but still like understand that there is a benefit to training. I just need to shift my focus. And I think that's great. And all coaches need to kind of find whatever their purpose and whatever style they like training and then just stick with it. It might not be heavy barbell stuff like it used to be. But now you can find a different venture, something different to kind of channel all that training into. And sounds like you found some pretty cool ones to benefit what you do outside the weight room as well.
Yeah, I mean, we got to be students of our own craft, right? I mean, or practitioners of our own craft, and um, I'm not going to work out with my athletes, but uh, the way our weight room is situated, the nutrition station is right here, and so I work out every day, and people see me work out. That's important to me that they know that I'm not just telling you to do things. I am also going to be doing these. And it doesn't. I don't care how much I lift, and my my big lift days are over, but I really enjoy it. There's a lot of pleasure in moving weight to me.
Yeah, walking the walk and having some skin in the game is important, but I mean, continuing to do it and still being able to talk from a place of like, oh, I did that today, I did that the other day, not like years in the past. Like that's, I think athletes buy into that too, especially like nowadays where instant gratification, social media, they see what someone was doing 10 seconds ago that they just posted. It's like it's hard for you to talk about something that happened, like a big squat that happened 10 plus years ago. They want to know like, okay, well, how does that relate to me now? So that's that's a great way to do it. It's awesome to kind of hear someone that's been in a place for such a long time and been a coach, like a master strength coach too, like is still practicing what they preach. So that's awesome, coach. Well, hey, like any good training session, we got to end the show with a finisher. So I got
Yeah.
4 quarters, 4 questions, and we got overtime at the end. But
Okay.
you can go rapid fire, or if you got more that you need to add, feel free to do it. But you ready?
Yep. Let's hit it.
All right, first one I got for you. Biggest influence in the strength and conditioning profession to you?
Me personally was my dad, just because growing up, him as a strength, an athlete, doing strength athlete things as well, and him being a coach and a strength coach. So definitely, definitely him. I think in is for most people, I think that don't devalue someone just because you haven't heard of them. I think some of the best strength coaches out there we haven't heard of. Like you said earlier, you're owning the wins, you got to own the losses. Some people have been more fortunate to be in a position where they were with a team that won, regardless of how good their program was or not, and vice versa. So that would be the big one for me.
I love it. That's awesome. Hey, so I know you kind of touched on it already with like some of the things you're doing outside the weight room, but are there any other like hobbies you've got going on when coaching's done for the day or you got that big summer break that you like to touch into?
I forged my first knife yesterday, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, nice. There we go.
Yeah. So I mean, he's a friend of my brother's up in Pittsburgh, so it's an hour and 10-minute drive. So I don't think I'll really get into it, but I'm going to do it again. It was a blast.
That's nice. That's definitely something on my bucket list. My brother started doing it and he was starting to go towards that path and I was like, I definitely want you to be a blacksmith because I think you could I know he can weld stuff, but I was like, I want you to be a blacksmith or something so I could start getting some really cool things made.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, if you weren't coaching, what do you think you might be doing as a profession? Are we going back to the history teaching, or is there something else that like might be in the cards if coaching weren't necessarily on the table?
I mean, listen, I've thought about this, seriously thought about this at different times. Like, I really don't know. I mean, we live in a time where everyone, oh, what fulfills you? Like, I mean, there are certain jobs that people do that I know they don't like, right? Like, you have to have a job, you have to make money, you have to support yourself and your family. So, I mean, I did work, I always work construction or landscaping in the summer, so those are probably things that I could always fall back on. I think being a raft guide would be cool, but you don't make any money, so you couldn't survive. And I can't drink like I used to, so that's probably out. I mean, I don't really have a good answer to that question. I think being a history professor would be cool, but um, I just don't think higher education is for me anymore. Um, I think that I don't have the personality for that. So I really don't know. Maybe a truck driver. I think that'd be cool for a year or so, but not any longer. I'd probably try a bunch of different things.
That's all right. Dabble in it if it comes down to it. So,
Yeah.
hey, if you're setting up an ideal training day for yourself, like I know it might shift like what's on the slate for what you're doing that day, but what's maybe your go-to training music or PR song and
Ooh,
favorite post-training meal?
okay. I think all time training song would be Walk. Um, but recently I've liked what is it? The Wolf by I'm gonna forget, Whiskey Myers. I like that one. I've also thrown in for some heavy sets, some like old like Nordic chant music, some Viking stuff. I kind of dig that. Um, uh, yeah, I mean, I like all kinds of music, mostly stuff from the '90s, but you know, there's like if I'm doing Olympic lifts, I don't want something heavy. I'll listen to like or the Clarks or Motown, Michael Jackson, like something like that. So I'm all over the map. Not a big country fan, but pretty much everything else.
All right.
And I love '90s rap, but anything modern, it doesn't speak to me. But like, you give me some old Tupac, yeah, I'll be all right.
I'm sure you get your fair share of the rest of the music like throughout the rest of the day.
Yeah, I think that's just like a hazard of the job. Like you just get sick of certain things because, oh, this team always wants to listen to this music or whatever. So, what is it? The remix where they just play snippets of songs. I'm trying to think of the two. Is it Two Brothers or something like that?
Yeah, there's that. It's
Yeah,
like the big booty mix and stuff
yeah,
too.
Big Booty Mix. That's the one. I kind of feel like I shouldn't have brought that up. It might say something, but it's not all good. Well, most of it's not great, but like it's like 10, 15 seconds of the song and then it's on. The problem is like every once in a while they throw a good song on there and you're like, yeah, and it's gone. But I guess for those of us that have some closet ADHD or something like that, it works.
It definitely keeps the volume and intensity up some of those days or on a dry spell, especially if you don't pay for like Pandora Premium or whatever it is and you get a commercial, that'll suck the air out of a room
Yeah.
real quick.
You're right about to go into the bar and it's a commercial, and then you're like, okay, I'll
Hey, well, I got one last one for you for
okay.
overtime. All right. Um, over the course of your career, has there been like maybe one defining moment that kind of either shaped it or you think kind of solidified like your choice for being a coach?
I'm sure something will come to me in 2 days because that's the way my brain works. But no, I don't want to. I can't point to any one thing. Like I said, I grew up in the weight room. I grew up around sports and training and stuff like that. I am a product of every person that has influenced me, and there's been many, many, many great coaches, uh, people that I've gotten to share a couple hours with. That has influenced me to be who I am. So, and even just great humans that I've gotten the opportunity to be around that influence who I am, that then influences my coaching. So I can't point to any one thing. Um, I wish I could. I wish I had an aha moment or an epiphany or, um, you know, uh, like the clouds parted and God said, this is what you're going to do. But I don't have it. And I'm okay with that. I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do right now. Um, and yeah, I don't need to have writing on the wall, I guess, or some big moment. I just, when I can lay my head on the pillow every night and be satisfied with life and not trying, I don't want to ever be one of those people that misses what they've got where they're at because they're looking ahead. It's important to look ahead and have a plan. But as we know as coaches, every time you write an annual plan, it don't look like it did. When you finish it, it doesn't look like it did when you wrote it.
No, I think that's great advice too. Like at the end of the day, like you're a product of everything and it's I think a slow, constant kind of like that Olympic eternal flame just
Yep.
going. I think that's what keeps you going for a long period of time and because I think it can fade when you get that like epiphany moment because it's just a flash. It seems like a flash in the pan versus like oh, I still enjoy this constantly and I'm fulfilled when I go home. And I think that's what a driving factor, what that keeps you like rooted where you are and rooted like in the profession and trying to be the best version of yourself and coach you can be for your athletes. So I mean, one defining moment doesn't matter. I think you summed it up pretty well. So hey, Coach, this has been great. I really enjoyed you coming on the show today. Like, I can't thank you enough. Like, it was awesome to reconnect after all those years of, like I said, losing in the last couple of minutes and hearing that West Virginia song play as we packed the bus. But this has been great. Hey, for anybody that has any maybe follow-up questions for you, kind of want to reach out or follow just WVU and kind of your path. Where can they kind of get a hold of you or reach out if that's the case?
Um, one thing I learned years ago, I reply to every email. Well, I reply to every email that's addressed to me, like not those mass ones that go out. But if someone emails me, I reply to it. I just think that's being a good person. So my email's on the WVU Athletics website. Feel free to reach out. All my social media stuff is my personal. Like I don't do any like promotion or anything like that. So email is probably the best, but I'm happy to talk to anyone. My experiences are unique to me, but maybe they help someone.
No, I agree. I mean, I think anybody can be helped from this and they're gonna enjoy this episode and be able to pull a ton from it. So, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on today.
Sure.
It's been a lot of fun. So I appreciate it, Coach.
Yep. We'll see you later.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.